Welcome to the Port of Spain prison, within whose walls we have many men who, as have been prayed for, some are here unjustly, some are here justly, but all with the need to be put in a sense of direction, to be found right within themselves and amongst our society. We are here this morning for the launching of the Port of Spain Prison's library and reading room. It is said that when you open a book and you read its lines, you live 1,000 lives. But the man who never reads lives just one.
I have been given the pleasurable duty of welcoming each of you to the Port of Spain prison. For this, the opening of the library project delivered by Wishing for Wings and Children's Art Foundation in collaboration with the Trinidad and Tobago Prison Service. This is the shared responsibility approach. To fully understand what today means to our organization, let me share with you a little history of the institution. The Royal Jail was constructed in the 1800s on the outskirts of Port of Spain. Yes, I said the outskirts of Port of Spain. Restorative justice was not the thought behind its design. Today, we have reached far from where we have come. But taking a line from my commissioner, we still have far to go as we fulfill the mandate to protect society by facilitating opportunities for rehabilitation and habilitation.
Today, as we open the library at Port of Spain, we want to welcome it from all different angles. A very positive change. Our Wishing for Wings founder, Ms. Debbie Jacob, again, I want to take a minute to say you are a human angel. Thank you very much. Before today, we had a small classroom with some novels, few encyclopedias. And before my incarceration, I could have read, I could have write. I knew where to put a full stop, a comma if I'm writing. But I came upon a comprehensive passage, and one of the questions was to identify two literary devices the writer used in paragraph number 1. I didn't know what a literary device was. And in that little room on your right-hand side, with those small encyclopedias, I got to realize metaphors, similes, hyperboles, different figure of speeches. In that little room, we also learned that there is approximately 750,000 words in the English language, and almost half of these words we borrow from different languages. Mother, brother, ground are all Germanic nouns. Even from the French, we borrow mansion, court, cafe, diner. From the Spanish, we use tortilla, cigar, gorilla, mosquitoes. From the Greek as well, we use geology, biology, different words. So simple, basic, important information. Also, when we are debating, whether inside here or on the outside, about anything, any topic, sports, politics, without knowing how to read, we cannot voice our opinion in any of those issues. You cannot rely on what you heard from someone or what you Google on the internet. For example, books versus internet. Google and Yahoo and other search machines are limited, and also quality control do not exist. We don't want all of our children getting their sex education from a triple adult site on the internet. And it is proven the most reliable and scholarly information is available in books and journals. And also what is happening with the library, you get to see your children on a one-on-one basis. Normally what we had was Normally what we had was a Christmas visit and a Father's Day visit where you spend about an hour. So with this one we welcome it, and even though you can help your son or your daughter solve a math problem, or even help him to know, well, when you're reading a book, you read with the dictionary as well, we can also get some one-on-one time with them. And because my son, he attends one of our nation colleges, I'm proud of him. I think he can read as well, but there is room for enormous improvement. So I can also talk to him and let him know when you go into school, the kids you see wearing the glasses, and the ones you see with their pants up high by their waist, and we tend to call them a nerd or a geek, and we laugh. These are the people later on in adult life. They are going to have their doctorates in front of their name and their senior council status behind their name. Some will even have both. Both senior council, both doctorate. So very, very important having that one-on-one time with your son.
This is a momentous day for everyone who believes in the power of books. As we gather here for the official opening of the Royal Reading Room, where the Port of Spain Library and the Children's Reading Room are now located, we can celebrate that indeed the pen is mightier than the sword. There are other prison libraries in Trinidad and Tobago run by NALIS, but this privately run library is unique for its roots that can be traced back to a single book, Wishing for Wings, based on my first CXC English class in the Youth Training Center, YTC. Looking back on those days with prison officer Donna McDonald and Commissioner of Prisons Sterling Stewart, who then served as superintendent at YTC, I remember how my students and I forged a special bond through reading and writing. The lads found solace in books, and they began to write about their lives. After encouragement from my editor, Arthur Dash, to share the lads' experiences in newspaper columns, encouragement from Justice Kathy Ann Waterman Lachu, who encouraged me to write a book, and the lads' approval of the idea because they wanted to do something meaningful with their lives, I wrote Wishing for Wings. The stories we told created a new awareness of the crime situation in Trinidad. My students inspired me to start an NGO, the Wishing for Wings Foundation, which is registered with the Ministry of Community Development. When I came to Port of Spain to teach English, I opened a small library right there with the encouragement of my super supportive English class. I dreamed of a special place where inmates could discover books as my lads had in YTC, a place where they could read to their children. After a long search for a perfect location, Mr. Stewart and a very long list of superintendents of Port of Spain Prison, including Mr. Mohammed, Mr. Bruce, Mr. Alexander, Mr. Lovell, and Mr. King. Mr. Stewart and the prisons decided on a space that once housed cells for condemned inmates. That place has been transformed from one of the darkest places imaginable in Trinidad and Tobago to a place of light and hope where inmates can experience a real library. In that long, challenging journey, Joel Roberts from the Programs Department tolerated my many chameleon moods every step of the way, cheering on all my ideas with zealous enthusiasm. Without a doubt, we would not have this new library without the cooperation of the Port of Spain Prison, and especially our sole sponsor for these renovations, Children's Ark. They worked together to implement my vision. Inmates tore down cells, and Children's Ark transformed the space into a library and children's reading room. Kathy Ann, Vicky Acevero, and Simone de Labastide of Children's Ark are the epitome of selfless support. Their encouragement and their tenacity are astounding and inspiring. I am amazed at how much can be accomplished when people, organizations, and government ministries work together. Together, the Ministry of Community Development and the Ministry of National Security funded some of my initial library projects. For this new library, architects Michael Niarco and Rudy Lynn Roberts were instrumental in designing the library. My daughter, Eugenia, always a pillar of support and part of the Wishing for Wings Foundation, chose the colors for the library walls and the design of the children's area, and then inmates from Carrera interpreted the designs as a dreamy scene with a tree and books taking flight. Everyone contributed to this warm and inviting environment, but Children's Ark and the Port of Spain Prison made it all happen. Books take on a special meaning in prison. They offer comfort, escape, and advice. My son Zeno and Eugenia say that books I read to them were the highlight of their childhood. All children should experience such joy. Through Children's Ark, inmates' children will have books they can take home and keep forever. Our plan is to send children home with DVDs of their fathers reading to them so the children can have a memorable experience. I believe with all my heart that the pen is mightier than the sword and that books transform lives. I want inmates to be instruments of change and to instill confidence and a love for reading in their children, because I know reading makes dreams come true.
It is God's will that we are here today to celebrate the opening of a library facility for the use of inmates and their children in the institution that used to be known as the Royal Jail, but is now referred to more accurately as the Port of Spain Prison. This library has been built and equipped by the Children's Ark to provide the venue, the books, and other equipment needed to establish and operate a program whereby at regular intervals inmates read to their children and or children will read to their fathers. And we are indeed very happy as an organization and NGO to be a part of this. Credit must go to Debbie Jacob for developing and promoting the concept of such a program, Wishing for Wings. It is worth mentioning that the space which now houses the facility upstairs, where we will eventually go, was previously occupied by persons in death row, the death cells, awaiting execution of death sentences passed on them. This provides a dramatic indicator of at least one way in which our society can truly claim to have progressed. We consider this project a very important one as we recognize the need for reform and the great loss and disadvantage that young children go through with their father's imprisonment. And hearing the inmates speak just now was very heart-moving. And we are indeed happy to be a part of the process here today. Almost every day we read in the newspapers and on social media disturbing reports of violent acts ranging from bullying to murder committed by young males. Headlines such as "Killers Getting Younger" are quite typical today. Further, it is generally recognized that the breakdown or absence of family life is at the root of the problem, and family in this context includes father. Therefore, insofar as the prison reading program provides an opportunity for fathers who are in prison to interact and bond with their children while engaged in an entertaining and educative activity, it will surely bring substantial benefit not only to the fathers and their children who participate, but also to their families and the society as a whole. The Children's Ark is fairly a young NGO. We have only been operating for 3.5 years now. And in that time, we have undertaken and successfully completed a number of projects. I will be here all morning if I go through all of them, but if I may just say a few, including the donation of a 30-seater bus to Goodwill Industries for the safe transport of challenged young people who were often abused using the public transport system. Thank you. A preschool at Beetham for the benefit of over 55 children, some of whom also came from Sealots, Trumacac, Morva. We supplied educational material, children's furnishings, and significant infrastructural repairs on the building by partnering with the Army Reserve. The supply of medical, sporting, and therapeutic equipment to organizations here in Trinidad and in Tobago for the benefit of challenged children. The Children's Ark carried out an 8-month sports clinic at the Beetham in partnership with the IATF, the Army and Police, and the Darren Ganga Foundation for the benefit of hundreds of children. And significantly, we recently completed a very intense 6-month awareness and prevention anti-child trafficking campaign to sensitize the general public, particularly children. The Counter-Trafficking Unit from the Ministry of National Security and the Victims and Witness Support Unit under the TT Police Service partnered with the Children's Ark on this exercise, where over 600 schools benefited from this exercise. It ended with an internationally renowned anti-trafficking activist, Anuradha Koirala, whom we brought down from Nepal. Her contribution was memorable and moving, as she spoke to over 500 of our guests at an event we hosted, and His Excellency also attended that event, and Her Excellency. Further particulars of our projects can be found on our website. In many cases, success has been achieved through a productive and effective partnership with others, all for the benefit of at-risk, marginalized children, which is what we are particularly catering on, at-risk youth in our country. We have been particularly fortunate in this regard, and never more so than in the instant case in which we have had the advantage of having as our partners a cadre of senior officers of the prison service, headed by Commissioner Sterling Stewart and Debbie Jacobs Wishing for Wings. As it happens, Commissioner Stewart will be going on pre-retirement leave very shortly. Given his unstinting support for this project, it is entirely appropriate that this function should be held before he goes. It appears to me that Commissioner Stewart has brought to his job two important particular qualities. One is the humanity or humanness with which he treats inmates. The other is the emphasis which he places on providing inmates with the opportunity for rehabilitation and self-improvement. We wish him a peaceful but yet a very productive retirement.
We especially invite you to our gated community. You're all welcome in this place. Thank you very much. We go to the word here. You know, I woke up this morning around 2 o'clock, the hours when the Spirit is moved. And my heart was moved to put this word together. So I hope that it used to touch your life and touch your heart as we go forward in this life, this wonderful life, in this blessed land of Trinidad and Tobago. These days the Spirit coming to me to just say this thing. Trinidad is my land, of which I'm proud and glad. And I just can't understand why some people is talking bad. Why are you talking? Don't talk the land bad, and don't talk the prison service bad, or correctional service as we want to be known. Because miracles are happening in this land. And with a president like Mr. Kimona, what a blessing. Trinidad is a great land. I mean, each and every one of you to recognize that as we go forward. It has no place I'd rather be than in Trinidad and Tobago. And if you're so inclined that you don't like it, well, go back to where you want to go. Go back to Africa and go back to India. I want to stay Trinidad. Pure Trini. So we go in this way reading. Normally I go freestyle, but I go in with the Spirit here. I believe that Trinidad and Tobago Prison Service could begin to export best practices in modern penological thinking to the rest of the world. I believe that we are champions in pioneering and innovative correctional strategies. I want to coin a term and invite the first world to come over and copy it from us. Preventative corrections. Preventative corrections. Mrs. Vicky Asivera, I recognize you. You have been a blessing. Thank you. While I listen to my song oxymoronic and possesses a seemingly contradictory effect, how can you correct something that you're preventing from happening? I can think of no other way to describe some of the activities of which the service has embarked in recent times. Imagine for a moment where a person came off of death row and are used as part of a structured initiative within the prison to travel around the country, sharing their stories, their testimonies with young people in schools to convince them that crime does not pay I'm not aware of anywhere in the world where this is taking place. To prevent a young person from making the same mistake, from being burned before they learn. We call them, and they have been trained, we call them the mentoring, peer mentoring group, and agents for social change. Give them a round of applause, please. Young people, both convicted and unconvicted, being used as preventative measures. And as if that was not a classic in and of itself, here is the unbelievable part. The very condemned division that was once used to house inmates on death row have now been transformed from a condemned division to a library and reading room that will allow inmates and their children to read to each other, to interact, to break the cycle, to break the curses, the general curses, to save the children, to save the next generation. Because we must realize that those who we fail to educate, we will continue to incarcerate. When I say correctional officers are miracle workers, some of you might have thought it was a joke, but the reality is we are transforming darkness into light and literally transforming death into the breaking of a generational curse of hopelessness and despair. I get up before the sun rises every day and I spend time in quiet meditation on my knees before our Father. After deep contemplation, I have found that everything in life has its opposite. For example, you have high, you have low, near, far, wet, dry, up, down, good, bad, negative, positive, optimistic, pessimist, and etc. So again, in quiet meditation, I thought of some of the challenges facing the individuals within the prison system. And I sought to find out what was on the opposite side of some of these challenges. For example, in a lot of cases, there was despair, and the other side of that was hope. My challenge, therefore, was how can I get more hope and less despair? And that issue was ignorance. And on the other side of ignorance is knowledge. Again, my challenge is how can I get more knowledge and less ignorance? Within the prison, I saw misery and anguish and pain. And on the opposite side of that is goodness. Turn to your neighbor and say, goodness. My challenge, how do I get less misery, anguish, and pain, and more goodness? These were the things that occupied my mind as a commissioner. And I began to make myself alert for opportunity for goodness within the space, within the environment, within the gated community as today. What opportunities were there for us to move from despair to hope, from ignorance to knowledge, from pain to pleasure, from misery to goodness, from darkness to light, from death to life? I found the answers in normal day-to-day conversation with average individuals who simply wanted an opportunity to make a positive contribution to the lives of the individuals within our care. To care, to show how much they care. Because there is a guiding principle that says this way. People don't care how much you know unless they know how much you care. I became the ultimate yes man for good. I said yes man. That's how I'm a yes man for the Lord. I'm a yes man for good. Knowing good, loving good, and doing good. Pure goodness. Once it was good, guess what my answer was? Say yes, oh yes, to thy will and to thy way, Lord. All right, and I wasn't singing there. I became an enabler and a facilitator for good, a servant. Forgetting titles, titlelessness, a servant for good. Some time ago, I had a most interesting conversation, a conversation that spoke to a partnership among the Trinidad and Tobago Service, Prison Service, the Truant Arc Foundation, and the Wishing for Wings Foundation, headed by Mrs. Simone de Labastide and by Debbie Jacob. who has been a servant for over, in this vineyard, for over a decade now. From YTC, when she saw her son, some of her sons, because of the age, being transferred to Portland prison, she called me hysterical one day. Mrs. Stewart, my son is in Portland prison. What can you do for me? I said, get here into Portland prison. And the rest is history. Here she is. And here we are, having a library and a reading room through a servant like Debbie Jacob. All you get Debbie Jacob, all the touch, all the... This is what I mean. That is what we have here. This is what we have here, true servants in these gated communities that we call prisons. Because we realize, and I realized a long time ago, that we talk about, that is why we talk about the shared responsibility model, that we can't do it alone. We need all the help. Because as Proverbs 23 verse 7 said, so a man thinketh in his heart, so he sees. So if we speak in rehabilitation and reformation and restoration, we'll be talking about treating with that warfare in the mind to change the attitude and behavior that cause some person to be repeating. And we have to destroy and terminate and exterminate words like we say about this and reoffending. Because as Stephen Covey said, to know and not to do is really not to know. The conversation was about developing the Wisdom for Wings Library and Insurance Program, where inmates within the system will be provided with a means of maintaining appropriate bonds with their children, with an opportunity to read to them as part of an initiative called Caribbean Fathers Are Reading. The opportunity gave me excitement when eventually a decision was made to transform what was once a condemned division, condemned division, within the prison to a library and reading room. That was the ultimate death to life and despair to hope arrangement. I'm doubtful that anyone could come up with a better use for that space. Reading ranks among the top strategies for personal transformation, and this initiative has the additional advantage of facilitating interaction between inmates and their children. This is indeed an award-winning initiative, and I'm willing to bet that before too long, the first world will come knocking and begging us for our secrets. This event is happening on the eve of my retirement. As a matter of fact, I'm proceeding on retirement in a couple of hours. I'm therefore happy to give a gift that can be opened again and again and can add value to the life of the opener. Every single time it is open, a gift of books. I want to encourage the users of this initiative to make the most of it. American philosopher Jim Rohn said, "The book you do not read won't help you. The book you do not read won't help you." The writer Mark Twain said, "The man who does not read a book has no advantage over the man who cannot read them." You have to take full advantage in order to gain the full advantage. The philosopher Rene said, "Reading a good book is like having a conversation with the finest minds of centuries past." This is truly a life-transforming initiative. I want to take this opportunity at this time to openly express my gratitude on behalf of the generations to come to the champion behind this initiative, Ms. Debbie Jacob and Ms. Dila Bastide. For their tireless efforts to touch and save lives within our environment. I want to thank you both. I want to thank all the correctional servants, miracle workers, laborers. Because I love how Romans 5 verse 20 say it. It says this way: "Where sin abound, grace abound more." Where sin abound, grace abound more. This is a time of grace to abound in our environment. Throughout the gated community and throughout our neighborhood and communities, as you prepare yourself, not for freedom, because some of you can handle freedom, but for success. And one of the keys to success that allow you to communicate effectively with those around you, including your children, is spending quality time in the library with books. Using your time productively and not allowing the devil to take hold of idle hands. This is the opportunity for you to prepare. So all of you, I want you to inculcate that in your spirit and open your heart to understand this. This is temporary, and you have a better life outside there. And Trinidad and Tobago need the prison service. As our mission statement said, committed to protection of society and reduction of crime by providing opportunities for habilitation and rehabilitation of offenders while maintaining control under safe and secure and humane conditions.
Many speak and write with learned and comprehensive analysis on the way forward in arresting this social dysfunction called crime. However, when you have lived most of your adult life, as I have done as a criminal prosecutor and a judge, in the briar patch of criminality, removing thorns from the hides of communities and nations, it gives you a factual and human insight that crime is not a one-way street. It is not about them and I. It is rather about all of us. It is about the failure of all of us to be our brother's keeper by not giving everyone an even and fair chance to succeed, to aspire, and even to dream. Through my successful prosecutions, and if I may use American prosecutorial terminology, I have put some 30 men on death row. And many are now serving long prison sentences of 75 years. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, as a judge, as all judges, we have been given greater powers than even the powers of a president. And I have had the uncommon experience of sentencing men to death. And I have quietly suffered the experience of getting up in the morning, hearing that a man has been executed, who I put there and kept there through my prosecution, and who also my colleagues at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions put there. And when I would hear about this on that morning of execution, I would ponder that the executed man was once a babe in arms, an innocente, and what went wrong. And I can recall on one particular occasion thinking how each man's death diminishes me, and for who the bells toll, they toll for thee, and they toll for all of us. And amidst all that concern as a criminal judge and as a prosecutor, I remember feeling a sense of futility when prisoners appearing before me became a recurring decimal walking through the revolving door of the criminal justice system. And quietly I would ask myself, are we going to lock them up over and over and over, creating a life of dysfunction where a human being becomes a human animal without purpose, because we need the statistics to prove that we are doing something. Yes, this obsession with arrests, convictions, bullets, guns, incarcerations, prisons built with scant courtesy to holistic measures that can save lives. And that is not looked upon with great favor. Because we have a concept called restorative justice, because we cannot tell when we invoke restorative justice how many lives we have saved. I encountered this many years ago when I was at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. As a member of NADAP, the National Drug Policy Program to encourage healthy lifestyles and to eradicate drug addiction. And I experienced this from successive governments who gave inappropriate funding to this NGO. And that is why what I'm about to say is grounded in my firm belief and support and being a proponent of restorative justice, a justice that heals rather than bleeds. You see, restorative justice has international support. The United Nations in 2000, at its 81st plenary meeting of the General Assembly, adopted the Vienna Declaration on Crime and Justice, meeting the challenges of the 21st century. In that declaration, the member states of the United Nations, of which Trinidad and Tobago is a member, decided to, and I quote, introduce where appropriate, national, regional, and international action plans in support of victims of crime, such as mechanisms for mediation and restorative justice. End of quote. The declaration goes further, and I quote, to encourage the development of restorative justice policies, procedures, and programs that are respectful of the rights, needs, and interests of victims, offenders, communities, and all other parties. End of quote. So, ladies and gentlemen, when we invoke restorative justice, we are invoking international benchmark standards that we have signed on to. And we must not apologize for invoking restorative justice policies and initiatives. The establishment of a library at the Port of Spain prison in these refurbished former death row cells is a telling and undeniable symbol and manifestation of the fervent and eternal hope of visionaries in our society. And that is what you are, Miss Debbie. That is what you are, Simone. Visionaries in our society that were prepared to do something rather than talk about doing something. These visionaries in my very presence, I am humbled by your concerns grounded in genuine humanity, empowerment, and reform through knowledge and education. Your initiative, Wishing for Wings and the Children's Ark, is a combination of dealing with the proverbial bolted horse and supporting horses still in the stables. This is not talk initiative. This is real initiative. And I wish to publicly commend the Commissioner of Prisons, Mr. Sterling Stewart, Debbie Jacob, a journalist among journalists, and the Children's Ark, of which I am the proud patron under the distinguished leadership of Ms. Simone de Labastide and her hard-working executive. Christopher M. Pham of the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, a research university in the United States, conducted a study on the prospects and challenges of prison libraries in Ghana, a place very similar to ours, in the Naswam Medium Prison. He noted, and I quote, library services remain an important service to every society that values freedom. The prison library is one of the few places that offer solace and escape in the extremely regulated lives of prisoners. Prisoners and officers alike believe information use could be an effective tool to ensure the restoration of inmates to a socially acceptable life outside of the prison's walls, ends of quote. He further proffered suggestions, and I put this before you, that the authorities can consider, and I quote, solutions made for effective and efficient library and information services for prisoners include development of a general academic collection, provision of civic and legal education for prisoners, engagement of professional librarians to manage prison library, reading promotion, and collaboration with public library services to offer standard prison library services in a bid to achieve the rehabilitation goal of the prison, end of quote. The library will also be a repository of the world's technology. But in the light of what obtains in cyberspace, obviously within the prison's wall, that technology must be the subject of responsible supervision and proper stewardship. The bottom line is that if we fail to educate, we will continue to incarcerate. If we fail to educate, we will continue to incarcerate. Illiteracy is a prison cell without windows and without light. Every prisoner wants to be part of the whole. Talking integration and rehabilitation is not enough. It must be actualized in and out of the prison. Qualifications and training within the prison must be able to bear scrutiny worldwide and must have worldwide certification if we are to rehabilitate and reintegrate the prisoner in society. I have a suggestion to arrest the problem. I have a life-one philosophy which I have carried into the office of the president, and I know it can be intimidating. I am not about talking problems, I am about solutions. On the 22nd of April of 2016, I met the chairman and had of City and Guilds and had a 90-minute meeting with Sir John Ammit, regarded internationally as the most successful British civil engineer alive today. And I raised with him the prospect of City and Guilds coming into the prisons of Trinidad and Tobago to train prisoners incarcerated and on remand, all with a view to arming the prisoner with knowledge that would help him in accessing jobs through international certification. I do hope it has not fallen on deaf ears. Is there a problem with the president giving out of the box innovative solutions to the problems we face in his capacity as an international jurist? I ask. And I will continue to be a light in the darkness. In this regard, as part of that restorative trust that we are experiencing today, corporate Trinidad and Tobago needs to be on board with us and must be prepared to hire not only ex-offenders, but also during the holiday period, those children and young adults from challenging communities, so that they can feel and see ambition at work. Yes, they can see and feel ambition at work in real terms in a working environment. And the philosophies and positive treatment they will invariably take back to their communities about the possibilities that lie beyond their trials and tribulations. And what can mushroom from that exercise is what Her Excellency, my wife, has been referring to ad nauseum to the child advocate. She is a proponent and advocate of the child advocate. That is why this initiative, as in fact the Commissioner of Prisons stated, is such a worldwide one to have children here today. The fact that an incarcerated parent is here must not discourage you. The runner stumbles. Nobody is perfect. And I know in my heart you will never enter these doors, but rather as a child advocate. You can inspire your father by living a life of honesty, integrity, and being a law-abiding citizen. And you can inspire your father to come across to your side through the power of your love. Remember, do not ever let the physical house you live in, the community that you come from, define you as a person, because you will be defined by your character, your heart, by your compassion, and the breadth and width of your vision. To put it bluntly, that is currency that has value all over the world. I want to tell you something, young children. And I refer to appointing someone not on the basis of his youth, but on the basis of his competence and his vision. And I refer to the appointment of a temporary senator, Nikolai Edwards, the youngest temporary senator to sit in the Senate or in the Parliament of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, at the age of 25 years and 6 weeks. Because you know why? We have a constitution that does not provide for that exceptional young person that can come along in a generation or two. And I refer specifically to the Constitution, which says that you cannot be a senator in the Parliament unless you're over the age of 25. And we forget Malala Yousafzai, who at the age of 14 has done far more for education in Africa, in the Middle East, in Pakistan and India, than many presidents and prime ministers in those regions, in terms of giving women a sense of empowerment and children a sense of purpose and giving them the desire to become educated and to find their rightful place in society. Yes, I speak of Nikolai Edwards, and I beg his indulgence wherever he is, because Nikolai Edwards' father was in this prison, and he broke out of this prison, and he was murdered in the hills of Laventille. And Nikolai was emotionally broken, but that never stopped him. As a result of his father's history, he suffered a great deal of discrimination, judgmental opinions, and unfair treatment. But this didn't stop him from getting his university degree. This didn't stop him from being elected the vice chairperson, policy, advocacy, and projects at the Commonwealth Youth Council. This didn't stop him of being one among 9 young persons representing all the young people of the Commonwealth. And this includes most of Africa, New Zealand, Canada, UK, and the West Indies. The sins of the father cannot and must not fall on the child. And you can be the change that we seek. And let Nikolai Edwards be your inspiration of what is possible with hard work and sacrifice. I can tell you, when I was a judge back in 2009, I had mentioned time and time again that the man-child in Trinidad and Tobago was in crisis. It is a story that I have related before. And I said it because I felt that our society needed to wake up to the fact that our young men between the ages of 17 and 30 were falling prey to murder, gang warfare, and drugs. I remember feeling a sense of desperation, triggered by the urgency of now. And I decided to use the Bail Act in a way to arrest the problem. I came across young men who were in jail for 10, 12 years awaiting trial for very serious offenses. And I took a chance on them. I indicated to them in no uncertain manner that I would grant them bail. And I saw the Bail Boys project, that is often referred to as the Camona model, working as a working component of restorative justice. And here's what it involved. The first thing I did as a judge of the High Court is I had apologized to all the accused for not having an early trial. They were exposed not to police officers in the reporting regime, but rather to probation welfare officers. They were exposed to psychologists, experts. They were in fact confronted with their anger management issues by clinical psychologists who dealt with substance abuse, self-esteem issues, parenting and fiscal management. We helped them find jobs. The employers reported on their competencies. And I'm pleased to say in one instance, a major contractor spoke to the court and said that a welder he got from us, who was in prison for 7, 8 years, was the best welder he has ever had in his entire career, and he was a prisoner. And I do not wish to engage it because research was done on the particular project that I initiated, and it continues unabated through the stewardship of Justice Lucky and Justice Malcolm Holdip. What I'm about to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, is that no matter what your field of endeavor, you can do something to make a difference. Change doesn't have to be tsunamic. You do not have to be part of a herd to engage and invoke change in this society of ours. Ladies and gentlemen, I remember sometimes, and I cannot help but remember it. I remember a friend of mine who lived in Belmont. Mr. Alert. His first name was Bert Alert. And I knew Bert for many, many years. And I recall as a judge I met Bert. And he told me he was the counselor for Belmont and that he was trying his best. And Bert told me he was threatened. And I said, Bertie, how you were threatened? He said, there are ghost gangs in my community. And they come and demand that I put their names down on a piece of paper to be paid. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. And they threatened to kill me. And I told Bert, and I said, Bert, what are you doing about it? He said he reported it to the authorities. He spoke to all the political authorities ever. I said, Bert, you are dealing with deadly men. I fear for your life. And 3 months afterwards, Bert was brutally gunned down in Belmont. And Belmont is a place that I love tremendously because I spend nearly all my holidays in Belmont, on Agard Lane in Belmont, because I had an aunt there. So advocacy can have its negatives. But this is no reason why we should give up. This is no reason why we should give up. In this regard, I want to tell the prison authorities that I am encouraged and I remain ready to support in whatever way I can the introduction, comprehensively so, of mediation and alternative dispute resolution to teach inmates how to effectively deal with and resolve conflict. The Mediation Board of Trinidad and Tobago, under the astute leadership of Justice Vashis Kokaram, remains a willing group to assist in spreading that philosophy of mediation and ADR. This initiative, ladies and gentlemen, that we are about to open will seek to ensure that these young children are protected and insulated from a possibly tumultuous life with an absent father through the power of literature, learning, and interaction with the person that they love. It is therefore my dream as president that each and every child in this country and even the world reach the highest heights in education and be empowered to realize their dreams through education and reading. As I look into the audience, I see children, the flowers of this republic. And having spent all my professional life in the criminal justice system, I am not patronizing you, because I know, I understand the obstacles and challenges you encounter every day. You are sometimes confronted with situations that are beyond your control, and sometimes you do not fully understand. I want you all to understand and appreciate you must not and do not feel minimized or less than the child next to you at school, in the library, in the park, because your father is a prisoner. He's here only for a time. Rest assured, because you're a prisoner, child, because you're the child of a prisoner, do not ever think or feel that you have done something wrong. You have done nothing wrong. And you have a life of limitless possibilities. And you can achieve your fullest potential, making everyone around you, including that father, proud of your life choices. And your life choices must be vastly different from your father or mother who is a prisoner. These prisons walls may appear to create distance and break up families, but this initiative will support that unbreakable bond between a father and his child, a mother and her child, a father and mother, and his or her family. I am convinced, and that is why I'm here today, that this project is going to make a fundamental difference in Trinidad and Tobago in arresting recidivism, and those who have doubt about themselves, those who have low self-esteem, and will inculcate in all of them a sense of their worth. Because we are all one. Because we are all one, kneeling on the altar of humanity. Thank you very much.